there's a hidden code, one that has been passed down quietly for over 2,000 years. Not a religious doctrine, not a motivational trick. A system used by emperors, warriors, and philosophers that has the power to destroy anxiety, overcome chaos, and awaken a version of yourself you didn't even know existed. I found it by accident, and it changed everything. But before I reveal what it is, let me tell you how I almost gave up on life, and how this ancient code dragged me back from the edge. I remember the moment clearly. It was around 3 a.m. I was lying in bed, eyes open, completely exhausted but unable to sleep. My chest felt heavy. Thoughts raced through my mind like a hurricane. Everything in my life felt like it was falling apart. My finances, my relationships, my goals, my confidence. I had tried everything. Self-help books, motivational speakers, productivity hacks. Nothing stuck, nothing lasted, nothing worked. That night, something inside me cracked. Not in a destructive way, more like a whisper, a quiet voice that said, "There has to be another way." So I grabbed my phone, typed in one word, philosophy. I wasn't looking for answers. I was just desperate to feel something different. Then I saw a video titled Epictetus, the slave philosopher who found freedom. Click. I didn't know it then, but that was the moment the code began to reveal itself. The man in the video was talking about how we suffer not from events, but from our judgment of events. That hit me like a lightning bolt. I had never thought of that before. All this time, I believed my suffering was caused by my problems. The people who wronged me, the bills I couldn't pay, the failures I had collected. But what if it wasn't the events themselves? What if it was me, my perception, my interpretation? That idea consumed me. I started digging into his writings. Then I found Marcus Aurelius, the emperor philosopher. Then Seneca, the Roman statesman. And I saw the pattern. These men lived through plagues, betrayal, exile, war, and death. And yet they remained calm, focused, principled. There had to be a reason, a method, a code. And so began my obsession with what I now call the secret Stoic code. The first part of the code is this: you control your mind. Nothing else. Not your past. Not other people. Not the weather, the economy, or your genetics. Just your mind. Your thoughts. Your interpretations. Your decisions. At first, this felt empowering, but also terrifying. It meant that I could no longer blame others for how I felt. I couldn't blame my circumstances. I had to take full ownership. It was like a mirror being held up to my face, showing me every excuse I had used to avoid responsibility. Then I found something even more disturbing. Marcus Aurelius, ruler of the Roman Empire, wrote in his private journal, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." This wasn't depressing. It was liberating. Memento mori. Remember that you will die. Not someday, but maybe today, maybe tomorrow. The second part of the code was emerging. Live as if death is close. Because it is. That day, I threw away my endless to-do lists and started asking a simple question every morning. If today were my last, what would I want to feel proud of? Not what I would enjoy, not what would be comfortable, but what would make me feel proud. That question alone changed the way I approached everything. Work, conversations, eating, scrolling through my phone. But the code goes deeper. As I kept studying, I saw a pattern of 3 unspoken laws that no one teaches in school. Law 1, control what you can. Let go of what you can't. I started writing 2 lists every day. What I can control, what I can't control. Then I trained my mind to only focus on list number 1. It was harder than it sounds. Our minds are addicted to worry. But with time, I noticed something extraordinary. My stress levels dropped. My clarity improved. My confidence rose. Law 2, train the will. The Stoics believed that willpower is like a muscle. It must be trained through voluntary hardship. So I began practicing what they called premeditatio malorum, visualizing the worst-case scenario so it wouldn't break me if it ever came. I fasted. I took cold showers. I sat in silence. I walked in the rain. I intentionally did things I hated, not to suffer, but to remind myself that I was stronger than comfort. Law 3. Act with virtue, not impulse. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." I started catching my emotional impulses, anger, jealousy, impatience, and asking myself, is this aligned with courage, justice, wisdom, or self-control? Most of the time, it wasn't, and slowly, I began to win the smallest battles. Not snapping at someone, not procrastinating, not seeking revenge, not choosing the easy way out. Each small victory made me stronger. Then one day the real test came. A tragedy. A phone call I didn't expect. A loss that cut deep. For a moment I crumbled. But then, the code kicked in. You don't control this, I reminded myself. But you control how you show up now. I took a deep breath. I showed up. I listened. I supported. I didn't fall apart. Not because I'm special, but because I was prepared. I was trained. Stoicism is not about being emotionless. It's about being unshakable. In a world addicted to instant gratification, outrage, and constant stimulation, the Stoic walks a different path. Path of stillness, of clarity, of relentless ownership. The code is not a hack. It's a discipline. You have to repeat it every day, because the world will test you. People will misunderstand you. Life will hurt you. But the Stoic code gives you a shield, compass, a sword. And in time, something magical happens. People begin to ask you, why are you so calm, so focused, so grounded? And you smile, because you know something they don't. So if you're still with me after all this time, maybe that voice inside you is waking up, just like mine did. Maybe your inner philosopher is ready, not to read more quotes, but to live by them, to become a modern-day Stoic in a chaotic world, to carry the secret code that has shaped the strongest minds in history and could shape yours too. Not someday, but starting now, because you're ready, and the code is waiting. But I'll be honest with you, living by the Stoic code isn't always easy. Some days you'll feel like it's working perfectly. You'll feel strong, clear, untouchable. And other days, the old habits return. Doubt creeps in. Emotions take over. You forget the principles. That's when the real test begins. Because the Stoic doesn't aim for perfection, he aims for progress. Let me share with you something that took me months to truly understand. The battle isn't just in the world, it's in the mind. And most people are losing because they don't even realize they're at war. Every morning, we wake up and we're pulled in 1,000 directions. Notifications, emails, messages, bills, complaints, temptations, distractions. The modern world is engineered to keep you reactive, emotional, and fragile. That's why the Stoic code isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. It's your armor. And once you wear it long enough, something remarkable happens. You stop needing motivation because you are no longer dependent on feeling good in order to act right. That shift changed everything for me. Let me tell you about a morning that could have broken me. It was raining. I was already behind on deadlines. My phone was full of messages. One of them was bad news, very bad news. A situation I couldn't fix. An injustice that made me furious. Old me would have exploded or shut down completely. But that day I sat, I breathed, and I asked the question the Stoics ask. What part of this is up to me? Not much, to be honest. But I could choose to act with dignity. I could respond instead of react. I could decide that no external event would own my peace. So I did. And as the day unfolded, I wasn't perfect, but I was solid. And that feeling is priceless. Now, here's a powerful truth you won't hear on social media. Most people are slaves, not to a person, not to a government, but to their own impulses. They say they're free, but they can't control their tongue. They can't control their attention. They can't resist food, anger, distraction, ego. They are dragged through life by invisible chains: pleasure, fear, approval. And worst of all, they think that's normal. The Stoic code breaks those chains. But it starts with this realization: you are not your emotions. You are not your thoughts. You are not even your reputation. You are your character. And character is forged through decisions, not feelings. People ask me now, but don't you ever feel overwhelmed or anxious? Of course I do. I'm human. But the difference is, I use those emotions as signals, not commands. When I feel fear, I ask, what am I avoiding that I must face? When I feel envy, I ask, what value am I outsourcing to someone else? When I feel anger, I ask, where am I clinging to control that was never mine to begin with? This doesn't eliminate the emotion, but it reclaims the power. That's the Stoic superpower, turning every obstacle into fuel. Let me give you the clearest formula I found. Pain times reflection equals growth. Discipline times time equals mastery. Virtue times action equals legacy. This isn't about achieving something once. It's about becoming someone forever. That's why I wake up every morning and revisit the same principles. I don't graduate from them. I return to them like a warrior sharpening his blade. Because life will not get easier, but I will get stronger. There was a moment I'll never forget. I was walking alone late at night. No music, no podcast, just silence. And I asked myself, what would Marcus Aurelius do if he were in my exact situation? The answer came like a whisper. He would act with integrity, regardless of who was watching. He would take the burden without complaint. He would speak less, listen more. He would remind himself, this is just another training ground. And I smiled, because I realized I wasn't alone. Every day that I live by the code, I walk beside giants. Not literally, but spiritually, mentally, in action. And that, my friend, is more powerful than any fame, wealth, or success. I'll leave you with this for now, but not to end, only to plant the next seed. The secret Stoic code isn't something you learn once. It's something you live over and over until your very presence becomes a reflection of strength, clarity, and peace. If you choose to walk this path, really walk it. Not just read about it, but practice it daily, you'll change. Not in the way the world expects, but in the way that matters. And one day, someone will look at you and say, I don't know what it is about you, but you're different. And in that moment, you'll know, you're not different, you're just free. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt betrayed? Not just disappointed. I mean that gut-wrenching moment when someone you trusted turns their back on you. Maybe they lied. Maybe they left. Maybe they smiled in your face while secretly tearing you down. It happened to me. And in that moment, when the pain struck, when every instinct screamed for revenge, I remembered a single line from Epictetus. When someone does you wrong, immediately consider what their idea of good and evil is. Once you understand that, you will feel compassion instead of anger. That sentence saved me from becoming someone I'd regret. The Stoic doesn't ignore pain. He looks it in the eye, because pain is a forge, and what you do with it determines what kind of person walks out of the fire. So I asked myself, what would the Stoic warrior do? He would feel the cut, but not collapse. He would hurt, but not hate. He would rise, but with grace, not vengeance. And that's exactly what I did. You see, the Stoic code isn't about looking calm. It's about being calm, not because everything is fine, but because you are. Most people try to manipulate the world to feel okay. The Stoic flips it. He shapes himself to be unshakable, no matter what the world throws at him. This leads to a strange kind of power. People start to notice. You don't overreact. You don't beg for approval. You don't waste energy complaining. And suddenly, they come to you for clarity, because you've become a lighthouse. Let's talk about relationships. Most people think Stoicism means becoming cold, distant, detached. But that's a cartoon version, a misunderstanding. The true Stoic loves deeply but not desperately. He gives without expecting. He listens without interrupting. He speaks with intention, not impulse. He doesn't confuse neediness with love, because he's already whole. One day, I was in a conversation with someone who kept trying to provoke me. Passive aggression. sarcasm, subtle jabs. Old me would have snapped, but I paused. I asked, "What's really happening here?" I realized they were hurting, not because of me, because of themselves. So instead of reacting, I responded with calm. And you know what happened? They softened. Their voice lowered. The aggression melted, because calmness is contagious. And when you master yourself, you shift the room without even raising your voice. Now let's enter the arena of ambition. Career, money, success, power. The world will tell you to hustle harder, to sacrifice your soul for attention, to chase dopamine in the form of likes, status, and shiny things. The Stoic laughs quietly, because he knows all of that is borrowed. You can't own what the world can take away. So he focuses on what can't be taken. Discipline, integrity, wisdom, presence. He builds skill, not hype. He builds value, not noise. And slowly, quietly, he becomes unstoppable. Not because he outshouts others, but because he outlasts them. Now let's confront a darker moment. Loss. The death of someone you love. The end of something you thought would last forever. The Stoic doesn't pretend these things don't hurt. He doesn't numb the grief. Instead, he does something more courageous. He honors it. He lets it carve depth into his soul. And he remembers what Marcus Aurelius wrote. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. This isn't about fear. It's about urgency. Because death doesn't make life meaningless. It makes it precious. So the Stoic walks with awareness. He forgives faster, loves deeper, acts braver, not because life is long, but because it isn't. At this point, maybe you're wondering, how do I begin? How do I stop just understanding Stoicism and start living it? Here's how. 1. Morning command. Wake up. Sit in silence. Ask, what do I control today? And let your actions flow from that. 2. Midday reflection. When something irritates you, pause. Say silently, this is the test. How I respond is who I am. 3. Evening inventory. Before bed, ask yourself, where did I act with virtue today? Where did I fall short? No judgment, just clarity. And tomorrow, aim higher. But let me give you a warning. Once you start living this way, really living it, you'll start to feel like a stranger in the world. You'll walk slower, breathe deeper, speak less. You'll say no to drama, to shortcuts, to noise. You'll start building a kind of inner freedom that others won't understand. And some will mock it. They'll say you've changed. And you'll smile, because you have. And one day, sooner than you expect, someone will come to you quietly, privately. They'll say, you seem so grounded. How do you stay so calm? You don't let things shake you. What's your secret? You feel different. I want that too. And you'll know in that moment, this wasn't just a mindset. This was a code, a secret passed down through centuries, lived by emperors, warriors, exiles, and now you. Fear, the invisible wall that blocks your potential. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of losing control, fear of not being enough. The Stoic doesn't pretend to be fearless. He simply trains his mind to recognize what fear really is: a lie, a ghost, prediction dressed as reality. Seneca once said, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. And when you let that sink in, when you realize that 90% of your stress comes from your thoughts, not your circumstances, something profound happens. You stop running from fear. You walk toward it. You examine it. And then quietly you disarm it. Not through hype, not through ego, but through clarity. You say, what is within my control? What's the worst that could happen? Can I survive that? Yes? Then let's move. Over time, this rewires you. What scared you yesterday becomes your warm-up today. Let's talk about something misunderstood. Confidence. People think confidence is loud, arrogant, alpha. The Stoic knows better. True confidence is silent, because it's not a performance, it's presence. The man who walks into the room and doesn't need to dominate it, he already owns himself, and that's enough. You build this kind of confidence by doing hard things privately, without applause. by showing up when no one's watching, by choosing discomfort, not ease, by keeping promises to yourself. That's how you become someone who doesn't need validation, because your actions already validated you. There's one last part of the Stoic code, the one most people avoid. Memento mori. Remember, you must die. First, it sounds dark, morbid, cold, but that's only because we've been taught to fear death. The Stoic does the opposite. He stares at it, welcomes it, not because he wants it, but because he knows it makes him fully alive. If today was your last, what would you say differently? What would you stop tolerating? What would you finally start? When you live with death on your shoulder, you waste less time. You forgive faster. You love more boldly. You speak more honestly. You take the risk. You make the call. USTO. Because death isn't the enemy. It's the reminder that now is everything. At this point, you might feel something shifting inside you. You've been introduced to the Stoic code. But here's the real secret. It's not just for you. Because now, whether you know it or not, you've become the carrier. Your actions, your energy, your calm presence, they will influence others. They will notice. They will begin to ask you things they never asked before. How do you stay calm under pressure? How do you make decisions so clearly? Why do you seem so steady, even when everything's falling apart? And when they ask, you won't need to give them a lecture. You'll just live the answer. You'll embody the code. And maybe, just maybe, one day you'll pass it to someone who needed it as much as you once did. So now, here's the final piece. The call to action. Because this code doesn't work unless you live it. So take a breath and make a vow right here, right now, to stop outsourcing your peace, to stop negotiating with fear, to stop abandoning yourself to please others, to stop waiting for permission to become who you were meant to be. Instead, choose clarity, choose action, choose presence, choose power over panic, choose virtue over validation. You already know what to do. You've heard the voice whispering inside you all along. Now it's time to obey it. This is the path. This is the code. And this is your moment. Welcome to the Stoic life. Forever changed. Never going back. Even after everything you've heard, the real transformation hasn't happened yet. Because this isn't just about ideas. It's about practice. It's about the quiet moments when no one is looking. When the applause is gone. When it's just you, your choices, and the weight of the world. The Stoic code isn't something you remember once. It's something you return to every single day. And some days it will feel easy. Other days you'll want to quit. To react instead of reflect. To escape instead of endure. To follow the chaos instead of lead with calm. But those are the days that build you. That's when the code sharpens your character. That's when you rise or repeat the past. You won't be perfect. You don't have to be, but you must stay committed. And when you fall off the path, which you will, you don't shame yourself. You step back on. One breath, one choice, one act of courage at a time. The whisper of stillness. There's a moment that comes after discipline, after challenge, after showing up again and again. The stillness. You begin to see the world differently. Everything slows down. The noise doesn't reach you like it used to. You're no longer swayed by praise or destroyed by criticism. You become anchored. You walk through life like a mountain walks through storms. And others feel it. They lean on your presence. They trust your steadiness. They borrow your calm. But it doesn't feel like effort anymore. It feels like truth. Because it's who you've become. The code lives through you now. The greatest legacy of the Stoic code isn't the knowledge. It's the way it rewrites your spirit. You don't need to wear a badge. You don't need to prove anything. The ones who matter will recognize you, not by what you say, but by how you carry yourself. You've become the lighthouse in the storm. Not perfect, but present, unshakable, true, and that is rare. So protect it. Guard your thoughts. Sharpen your actions. Keep your word live with intention. And above all, keep returning to the code, because it's not a story you tell once. It's a life you keep writing, in silence, in strength, in service. Every single day, you are no longer just a student of the Stoic code. You are now a guardian of it. And from this moment forward, your life will never be the same. Welcome to the new you, still, strong, unshakable, free. This is how it begins. Not with noise, not with applause, but with a whisper inside your soul that says, "Now I know who I am." And you do. The code lives in you, forever. Now that the code lives in you, there's one last truth I must leave you with. Something no book will scream, no mentor will preach, no society will reward. But the Stoics, they knew. There is a hidden war inside every human being. A war between two voices, the one that urges you toward clarity, discipline, purpose, and the one that whispers compromise, distraction, comfort. And this war never ends. That's not bad news. That's the truth. Because your greatness is not forged in ease. It is carved through resistance. The temptation to drift never disappears. The urge to react never goes silent. The pull toward comfort never truly dies. But here's what changes. You stop obeying it. You see it. You feel it. You even hear it. But you don't follow. Because you've outgrown it. You've buried that version of yourself. And now, you walk with deeper roots. You versus your old self. The real enemy isn't the world. It's not your past. It's not other people. It's the version of you that wants to shrink, that wants to disappear, that wants to hand over your power to circumstance. The Stoic doesn't seek to destroy the self with anger. He outlasts it with patience, with awareness, with deliberate choices. Every time you wake up early instead of hiding in bed, every time you respond instead of react, every time you choose silence over ego, you're winning, not just the battle but the identity war. The you of yesterday doesn't own you anymore, because now you've built something stronger. The code is simple but not easy. Let's be brutally honest. This isn't for everyone. Some will listen to all of this and then scroll to the next video. They'll nod. They'll feel something stir, but they won't change. Why? Because change is expensive. It demands discomfort. It demands honesty. It demands letting go of your victim story, the one you've been telling yourself for years. The Stoic code forces you to own everything. Your thoughts, your time, your choices, your outcomes. No one else to blame. No shortcuts. No excuses. Just you and the mirror. And for most people, that's terrifying. But for you, it's the beginning of freedom, the unshakable path ahead. So what happens now? You live, not with distraction, but with direction. Not chasing everything, but choosing what matters. Not chasing likes or followers, but leaving real impact in quiet, invisible ways. You begin to say less and mean more, react less and reflect more, complain less and build more, seek less control and cultivate more power. You won't always succeed, but you will always return to the code, because it's not a tool, it's a compass. And now that you've found your true north, you don't wander anymore, you walk. And now, you become the guide. Someday someone will come to you. They'll be lost, confused, anxious, broken by noise, haunted by doubt. And they'll ask, how did you do it? You won't give them a list. You won't hand them a quote. You'll do what the Stoics did. You'll live it, through the way you look them in the eyes, through the way you breathe through chaos, through the way you speak, calm, firm, rooted. You'll become the evidence that it's possible to change, not overnight, but deeply, irreversibly. And when they're ready, you'll hand them the code, and their life will never be the same either. This is the end and the real beginning. You've walked with me through the storm, through the silence, through the war within. Now it's time to walk alone. But you're not the same. You started this journey with curiosity. Now you carry clarity. You began this story looking for answers. Now you are the answer. For yourself, for those you lead, for those still searching. You carry the Stoic code now. Live it boldly. protect it quietly, share it wisely, and never forget, the code didn't change your life. You did. The code just reminded you who you truly were all along.